And greetings. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. We are going to be joined here on the Deace Group momentarily by our friend, FBI whistleblower, Stephen Friend. See what I did there? Dad jokes, puns. I'm multi-talented, guys.
That kind of Friday?
That kind of Friday. It is. Is there any other kind? All right.
You wore the shirt for it.
I did.
That's a dad joke shirt right there.
Yeah, I love this shirt. Thank you. Take that as a compliment. Thank you.
Just exuding kicks and giggles over
Indeed.
here.
Indeed. We are brought to you by our friends over at Miracle Made. Whether it is the heat of the summer or the coldest January in Iowa I can ever remember, my Miracle Made sheets have turned out and held up phenomenal. Now we're in that change of seasons. I think this week coming up, we have one day where it's going to be 82 and then 24 hours later, a high of 55.
Yep.
All right. So you're turning the air on, the heat on in the Midwest in the same week. All right, we've done that at our house, okay? So this is where you want temperature regulating all night long for the best sleep you can get. And the silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA that are the key component of that thermoregulation that Miracle Made offers is exactly what you're looking for. Take it from me. I love these freaking things. Phenomenal sheets, and they're very comfy too. And I think this is a shirt where I feel comfortable wearing this shirt today. I feel comfortable saying the word comfy. I do.
Clearly.
I am uncomfortable.
All right, so if you want to give it a shot, all right, go to trymiracle.com/Deace. Try Miracle Made sheets today, whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one. And if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code Deace at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. And Miracle is so confident in its product, it's backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep right now. Go to trymiracle.com/Deace. Use the code Deace to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. That's trymiracle.com/Deace. And we are 10 days away from more election night excitement, we hope, here at The Blaze. And I will be one of those, because we're bringing in everybody. We're all going to Dallas to help helm Blaze TV's election night coverage. So if you want to make sure you don't miss it, this is the best opportunity to subscribe to Blaze TV right now. Go to blazeelection.com/Deace. You'll get /Deace, I should say. And you'll get $40 off your subscription. Biggest discount we've ever offered. $40 off at blazeelection.com/Deace. No spin, no filters. We're just going to be speaking truth there that night. And hopefully we're going to get the verdict that we want. Again, blazeelection.com/Deace. But if it doesn't, I think we proved in 2022, we'll tell you the truth. We nearly had a fist fight. I nearly got fired. Okay. I mean, we'll tell you the truth, even if it doesn't go the way that we want. Okay. So either way, this will be must see. We'll either be trying to kill each other because we're all very frustrated and upset and taking it out on one another, or you can celebrate with us. Either way, I think that's must-see television.
Agreed.
All right. blazeelection.com/Deace for $40 off at blazeelection.com/Deace. All right, coming up next hour, it'll be Feedback Friday, but let's get it started. It's time for the Deace Group. Yes, I always say this to people when they come on the Deace Group for the first time, and they're like, did you guys just rip off like the entire McLaughlin Group? Yes, we just ripped the whole thing off. Ripped off the format, ripped off the theme, the visuals, the imaging, everything. Ripped
Tradition,
it all off.
unlike any other.
I'm admitting it at least. I ripped the entire thing off, but because it's from PBS and we're funding it, not to mention John McLaughlin is dead now. I think it's okay. All right, so let's get to issue 1. Bleep, Lord Nefarious says.
So proud to be from this city. You know, they say if Kamala wins, then the whole country will be like Detroit. Okay? Proud like Detroit. Resilient like Detroit.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
What do you like best about her plan for America?
Well, reproductive rights for women.
What views of Kamala's do you like?
Like abortion policy views. We like her stances and views.
Like which ones do you like the most?
Abortion,
what concessions would be on the table? Religious exemptions, for example, is that something that you would consider?
I don't think we should be making concessions when we're talking about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. So I may not be quick to have the answer as soon as you ask it about a specific policy issue sometimes, because I'm going to want to research it.
About being a girl dad. I love how much smarter she is than all the guys in the room already. I can tell that she's going to be a powerhouse. She is already at 2.5.
My daughter's 22 and a half, is a feminist, incredibly strong.
Hey! My vote for Kamala is an investment in my daughter's future.
I agree. I'm right there with you.
When the Dobbs decision came out 2+ years ago, I heard from Kamala right away, and then the next person was Ella. She texted me right away, essentially saying, we need to fight. This is not just an issue for women.
Is there something you can point to in your life, political life, or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes, and they range from,
Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dipshit on these things.
Do you agree that black men who are not voting for Harris and who didn't vote for you, as the pastor sees it, are misogynist? As he said, misogyny is still real in our community.
We do have to acknowledge that there is sexism, there is racism. There are challenges in our electorate, and that's why it's so important that Kamala Harris is going everywhere and talking to everyone.
We gotta wake up, and don't go for the okey doke, the flim flam. Can't do that. We gotta support our sister to become the first woman president of the United States of America, and the first sister.
I don't understand how we got so toxic and just so divided and so bitter, and I get why sometimes people just don't want to pay attention to it.
Day after former President Obama said that, the morning after Vice President Kamala, standing in front of a lectern with the official seal of the vice presidency, called Donald Trump literally Hitler. The morning right after that. Just can't make that stuff up. All right, so we have a tradition around here, Steve. The guest always gets to go first. All right, so what was the most hideous thing that you just gazed eyes upon, and why?
Well, chef's kiss, as always, to Aaron for that, because that's a great way to send us off into the weekend where we can hopefully fill our cups back up with something productive. I'm going to go to the town hall meeting where Vice President Kamala Harris was unable to answer the basic questions that are necessary to get a frontline job at Baskin Robbins. What is have you ever made a mistake? And I think it's sort of an embodiment of the young ladies there that were saying that murdering babies was really what they were very interested in. That's the cautionary tale. That's a woman who put that element of her life aside due to ambition. She had other things in mind. She wanted to and aspired to get power. And as a result, she made certain sacrifices about her family. She didn't have kids. And yet, when she was really put to it, when she was struggling to come up with the answer to get hired to scoop ice cream, she told Anderson Cooper that her mistakes were for child rearing, because that's where her natural and default answer is, because that's really what it is all about. The truth of Kindergarten Cop is undefeated. Boys have penises, girls have vaginas, and we all have different innate desires in life. And even Kamala Harris, despite everything that she has done over the years, she can't escape reality.
My man came out strong there with that opening answer. Yeah. So that kind of sets the tone. Let me just say, too, if I ever run for office, or if you ever come to me for advice or counsel or strategy, I'm going to hope I get that question, and I'm going to hope you, as the candidate I'm helping, get that question. The opportunity to show relatability and connectivity by admitting a mistake, that there's a real person there, and that there's something in your life you have grown from. I just think people don't understand that question is not a gotcha unless you're not a real person. If you're a real person there's a tremendous opportunity there to actually, remind people I'm a real person there. Anyway, Todd, your thoughts?
That's such an important point you made. I'm just going to echo it by saying, and I've said this on the show many times before, one of the most important things, if not the most important career decision I think you've ever made, is when you, in 2016, and Aaron was mentioning this in a different context before the show, but when you set Never Trump aside for that very reason. Like we didn't get, most people did not, including Donald Trump himself, the moment something shifted. And this happens throughout human history, throughout generations. Things move on. This is the fourth turning principle and things like that. But yeah, something shifted, and we all had to deal with it in our own way. Steve, you're right over the target in terms of this. The interviewing these young women, and they're laughing about it. The abortion issue is so front and center on the left amongst women. They're dominant voting bloc. This used to be one of multiple issues, and this is one they knew they had to nuance and really word craft carefully. They had to do reproductive health. They had to do safe, legal, and rare. Mm-hmm. Now that is all gone, and this speaks to what Allie Beth Stuckey needs to keep hammering what she, on that video of hers that you retweeted, Steve, about feminine maternal energy and how when it goes haywire, it goes from one of the greatest God-ordained goods, if not the greatest God-ordained good, to one of the greatest evil. You are seeing...
And Allie's point is that energy's going to go
It's
somewhere.
going to go somewhere.
You cannot set it aside.
No.
So it'll either be directed in manners that it should, or it will not.
And this is with all great evil. There's no evil that was just created. It is all the perversion of good. So the greatest goods, when perverted, become the greatest evils. That's what you are seeing happening. It's a Holocaust. It's society killer stuff. It's a neutron bomb.
The same thing, by the way, applies to masculinity. Can I?
Of course.
A little digression there for a second. I mean, if you take the adventuring instinct, if you take the risk-taking instinct, if you take the significance instinct, and you do not that is inherent to masculinity, and you do not apply them in arenas that are constructive, what you'll do is after you finish the Batman Arkham game, you'll go back and try to actually, I got to make sure I find every riddle here. Those instincts are going to go somewhere. They can either be channeled into arenas and avenues and directions that are constructive or not. But the same thing applies to on the other end. That masculine energy will be dispensed. It'll just be a question of what it gets dispensed into and towards. Aaron.
We're going to re-highlight. So I just want to say this as well, so that since we've highlighted in various ways the young women talking about how they're voting for Kamala because of baby killing. That's from journalist Owen Schroyer. Want to give him credit as well. I saw that video floating around all week. I bookmarked it so I could come back because it looked like something that would fit in well on Bleep Lord Nefarious Says. It was actually most of the young women that he was talking to, if they were voting for Kamala, and they pretty much all were in uniformity, there was only just like 3 or 4 of them that said the specific issue. If it was a specific issue, it was baby killing, but most of them just gave a general answer. I just like her policies better. So take from that what you want to. Let's re-highlight, though, Barack Obama, the most effective president of my lifetime. Bitterly clinging to his race huckstering
nice.
And communist manifesto there, wondering aloud again with, I do not think that he is this stupid. He's absolutely aware. He is absolutely aware of what he is doing. This is not a case of no self-awareness. He has self-awareness. So what does that tell you about what he's doing? Just abject deception.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wicked and evil. He knows what he got up to during his administration. Ferguson, Missouri, anybody? He knows what he did. He went in there with a very, very clear and specific purpose.
Before there was the Charlottesville lie, there was the hands up, don't shoot lie that never happened.
What was
either.
the George in Florida? What was that? What was that case as well? He wasn't even a white guy. I think he was Mexican.
Yep.
He knew what he was doing, and he knows what he's doing now.
The one where he said that if I had a son, he would look like him.
Correct.
That case you're talking about.
Yes, I can't remember. So, pardon me. He knows exactly what he's... Zimmerman, thank you very much. He knows exactly what he's doing. That is the worst of the week. That is just a lie and deception from the pit of hell.
Amen. I don't disagree with everything you guys said there. Let's get to the exit question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being how likely Lindsey Graham could meet the FBI's physical fitness standards for men that Steve had to meet, and 10 being how likely Lindsey Graham would like to meet any of the men training to join the FBI. Rank this week's level of total depravity, Todd.
10.
Steve.
They reduced the standard, Steve, so I'm going to have to go with the ultimate, and it's a 6.66.
Very nice. Aaron?
I'm going with a 10.
All right, let's get to issue 2. Is this just code for don't miss next time?
The White House, with the help of their lackeys in the media, made it abundantly clear this week, whatever happens to Trump, he deserves it. Regurgitating debunked talking points published at The Atlantic this week, Kamala stood behind a lectern bearing the seal of the Vice President of the United States and said,
"It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is."
Furthermore, at the White House, Karine Jean-Pierre says it's the official position of the executive branch of the United States that Trump is indeed a fascist.
So just to be clear, when you said we do agree, President Biden believes that Donald Trump is a fascist.
I mean, yes. We have said. He said himself.
At a CNN town hall this week, Kamala agreed.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
So this morning at the gym, and it was fascinating seeing Fox News and MSNBC side by side up on the wall, because both sides are communicating to their respective bases the same message. They're just accusing the other of it, right? And so MSNBC, down the stretch of the campaign, a beleaguered Trump turns a dark page and ramps up the anti-immigration rhetoric, all right? And on the screen right next to that, Fox News, down the stretch of this campaign, the joy is gone and Kamala has turned to calling Trump literally Hitler once again, right? But here's the thing that Fox News did add to that. I should give them credit for this. They put up a graphic of Republicans that at any point during presidential elections have been accused of being fascist or Hitler by the Democrats. And what the graphic showed is every Republican nominee since Richard Nixon has been accused of being either literally Hitler or literally a fascist. Every single one of them. Going back, that's you and I's entire lifetimes.
I think it goes back even further than that I saw the other day.
Another tradition, just like any other.
America's pastime.
Indeed. All right, so but let's start here, because in this case, and I've laughed about this. I remember the 2 years I spent contributing at MSNBC. I'd get loaded up with emails. That was even a decade ago. Bigots don't deserve rights. You shouldn't be allowed on the platform. Blah 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 blah. But in this case, to take it seriously and gravely so, they have tried to kill this guy twice, right? And so this is a very real thing. I mean, he's speaking behind plexiglass now, like Pope John Paul after his assassination attempt whenever he went out on the road from that time forward, okay? And so, that has to be factored into this calculus here. So are we being unfair? Or was Kamala's speech basically code for don't miss next time? Todd.
It's absolutely code for that, but it doesn't go far enough, because it's not just about him, it's about the rest of us. You see the lunatic with the tranny with the tomato juice in Aaron's montage there. Mm-hmm. There's on multiple issues, there's people that you've seen them recently debating Ben Shapiro in that circle, and all of their body language, they can barely contain their rage, their mental illness, the demons within them. It's not just Donald Trump. If they're going to come after all of us in one way, shape, or form, and and everybody's like, well, you don't be the one to take the bait. That's tomato juice. Next time, what? It's a baseball bat? I don't know. Sooner or later, it's just war. And I believe firmly that there's no sign that that's going away anytime soon.
I was on a show yesterday, and I made this point. Reagan used to famously say that a recession is when your neighbor doesn't have a job, and a depression is when you don't, right? And so are we doomsaying? Are we blowing this stuff out of proportion? Is this just fear porn to shame people into voting? And the reality is things aren't that bad. And we've got plenty of time to take whatever's gone on the last 4 years and give them a force multiplier of another 4 years, because by golly, the perfect candidate will all agree is without sin will emerge, right?
Yeah.
That kind of argument, right? And so I took Reagan's phrase when that question was presented to me, and I amended it. And here's what I said. I want to get you guys' reaction to it. I said, a culture war is what happens when you watch other believers get arrested for what they believe.
Right.
Tyranny is what happens when you get arrested. Okay? That's exactly how I phrased it. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of that going around. And people, and listen, whatever conservatism has been in our lifetime, we have to acknowledge that it's just ultimately not the ideas, but the way it's been packaged has been a failure. And a lot of it has to do with what you just said. The amount that you think you can just be an audience member, a passive participant into it, and never engage, never suit up, never go to war. That is a pox on our house. I don't exactly know how it happened, but it cannot continue, because now you're just going to be in the game whether you want to or not.
Aaron?
Yeah, so I think, I don't know if you saw the News Nation town hall between Chris Cuomo and J.D. Vance last night.
I saw the one clip where Vance urged people not to, lose friends and family. Okay,
that's
go ahead.
where I was going to go with
sorry.
this, because there, somewhere along the way, I would argue that the harvest happened during the Barack Obama administration for some of the reasons that I just laid out in reaction to Bleep Lord Nefarious says. But somewhere along the way, there was a flip that switched where it was actually okay to lose friends. It was okay to end friendships over politics. It was actually not only okay, it was right and justified and a good thing to divide ourselves because of politics, because of social issues that are important. But it was a good thing, actually, to cut off friendships. Somewhere a switch flipped along the way. The thesis between the Democrat power brokers, the mouthpieces, the media, and their followers, or those who have the propensity to follow them. The thesis, the overriding thesis, is actually Lord Voldemort on the back of Professor Quirrell's head in The Sorcerer's Stone. There is no good and evil. There's only power in those too weak to seek it. That is the thesis overriding. That's what you hear here. That is the underlying sentiment that you hear here. And this is not the first time that this has happened since they started shooting at Trump back in July. This is not the first time you've heard these things echoed. It's been echoed multiple times since then. That is the underlying thesis. There's no good and evil here. There's just power. That's what they're trying to communicate.
That's a very Marxist view of the world. Yes.
Correct.
So, Steve, I saved you for last because obviously you're going to have a very unique, hands-on, perspective on this as a former agent for the kind of three-letter agency there at the FBI that would be following up on these kinds of stories and threats and trying to perceive them, in advance of them actually being manifested. So the floor is now yours. What say you?
Well, to reflect on Kamala Harris's campaign, it sort of reminds me as an elimination game in a baseball playoff. She doesn't have the long runway that it typically happens for the primaries into a general election because of the coup, because of the shorter time frame. So they've been, that pitcher gives up a base hit, goes 3-0 in the second one, he gets the hook right away. So they tried Joy, it didn't work. They tried the Elizabeth Warren policy wonk. I got a plan for that. It didn't work. They tried just blatant bribery. That didn't work. They had to go to the OG, the closer. They walked in Mariana, and that's Trump is literally Hitler, which is what they're going to bring in the final closeout here. I think that it does sort of highlight the fact that they view both Donald Trump and anyone who supports him as collateral damage here. But that all being said, the heightened risk to me will come in the aftermath of the election itself, because that's when the break glass, if necessary, option is gone, and that being casting a vote for Kamala Harris so that I have the ability to murder my baby at any point during the pregnancy. If that option is off the table, then that leaves you with one, and that is violence. That's what J.D. Vance referenced in his op-ed, that you have to pull a bullet in the head in order to ultimately silence.
You would be somebody that in your previous career would have profiled this kind of incendiary rhetoric in other contexts, right? And so are we making too much I'll just say me. I mean, when I just flat out say I think it's code for don't miss next time, does this kind of rhetoric actually inflame people that would be inclined towards these kinds of actions? Or just, most normal people just know that this is just election year rhetoric? How would you answer that? Or is it both?
It's not if or, it's and also. The people who have a modicum of common sense and a triple-digit IQ, they just realize that it's heated rhetoric in the final days of a campaign. But the real vulnerable person, the person who the FBI loves to entrap in their terrorism, quote-unquote, plots, that's a person who sees that as a call to action. And maybe the plot leads them somewhere else. And as I said last time that you had me on, there's always the opportunity that the person might have that moment and think, the plan that's being laid out for me doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think I'm just going to grab my dad's deer rifle and go see if I can take a shot. And unfortunately, we have an incapable federal government when it comes to performing the necessary function that we expect of it, and that would be protecting a nominee for office at the hands of the Secret Service, or even pursuing a logical investigation in the hands of the FBI here. And that's both capability and then also politically motivated. The special agent in charge of the Miami field office, Jeffrey Veltri, was promoted to that position. But before he did that, he had to clear his Facebook account of all of the anti-Trump rhetoric. So
wow.
Not a lot of expectations coming out from the second assassination attempt.
One last question in this regard. How confident are you in the security former President Trump has at his disposal between now and if he wins, when he would take the oath of office and get full Secret Service protection at that point?
I have no confidence in them, which is why I just keep going back to the fact that I know he's P.T. Barnum. I know that the rallies are sort of his jam, but would it behoove him to message it as Mar-a-Lago is White House, Florida edition?
Mm-hmm.
I can call any media that I want here and conduct myself as if I am already the assumed president and message it as, look, I'm protecting my supporters. I've already had one killed, several others injured. There was the incident out in Arizona, and I'm not going to deny the human Roomba, Joe Biden, his protection, or Kamala Harris, hers as well, so that they can finish out the stretch, and then I'll take over, and a day one action for me is fix the Secret Service.
At the very least, shouldn't they do this during any transition, should he win, at the very least? Because at that point, there's no argument about the political benefit calculus along with the risk of life here. There's no one's making a point that we benefit from this politically and we need to win the election first. At that point, you would have already won. So at that point, I would think what you're suggesting during a transition would be especially useful.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to use all necessary resources. Who is going to say that the president has just too much protection? That's a pretty tough thing to message from a political standpoint. And I don't think anyone wants to see our duly elected president, with the exception of probably most of the people that want to pull the lever for Kamala Harris and have said that they would like to see him assassinated. To deny him that. And I think that that's in keeping with our tradition as a country, that if you have been vetted by the American people and you are duly elected, you are entitled to that sort of protection, you and your family as well, because that's another element to what is Donald Trump is a father and a grandfather. There are a lot of people who are at risk.
Let's get to the exit question here. There's 10 days to go. Will there be at least one more confirmed assassination attempt against Trump here in these final 10 days before the election? Aaron?
Yes.
Todd?
Yeah.
Steve, what do you think?
I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say yes if he wins in the interim between the election and the inauguration.
Yeah,
that is something some friends of mine who have some knowledge of this area are telling me in private that they are actually more concerned about, is the interim period. That at this point, I mean, if you want to know what a landslide possibility in today's polarization would look like, try to assassinate Trump one more time when he clearly has the momentum in the election, and that would probably do it. Then you're talking about, can you flip a Minnesota, a New Hampshire, a Colorado, right? With stuff like that. Their concern, from what some people I've heard from, the real danger they're concerned about is after the election. The time between November 6th and is it January 20th in 2025, 21st, somewhere around there. That's the period of time. Those 2.5 months right there, that's what they're really worried about, is that. So.
Agreed.
What does it say that this is just now, analysis?
Yeah.
Given where we are as a country. It says the social compact is dead. More in a moment. You ever tried to break a bad habit and felt like you were climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops, not Crocs? I am confident you could climb Mount Everest in Crocs, but flip-flops, no. So if that's you, here's a breath of fresh air. It's called Fume, F-U-M, M as in mama. It's not about giving up. It's about switching up, and Fume takes your habit and simply makes it better, healthier, and a whole lot more enjoyable. So instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses delicious flavors. So yes, Fume, instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and make replacing your bad habit even easier. And they've got adjustable airflow dials, so it's designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting as well. That gives your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. So Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you could be their next success story. For a limited time, use my code Steve to get a free gift with your journey pack. Head to TryFume, F-U-M as in Mary, tryfume.com, use the code Steve to get a free gift with your order today. We're almost to the end of the year and New Year's resolution season. Just get the jump on that right now. All right. Go to tryfume.com, use code Steve to get the free gift at tryfume.com. Use the code Steve. Speaking of Steves, we are joined today by FBI whistleblower Stephen Friend. He is our guest on the Deace Group. As we march on with your weekly look at the week that was, let's get to issue 3. How much more weaponized will it get if Kamala wins?
Last week, Bevelyn Williams turned herself into federal prison for 3 years for protecting women and unborn children outside a baby killing facility in New York. She's the latest victim of the specious application of the Freedom of Access to Clinics Entrances Act, which has been turned into a cudgel against pro-lifers who want to minister to women trying to kill their babies. Williams, a Tennessee anti-abortion activist and young mother, was sentenced to 41 months in prison on July 23rd for her actions at a Lower Manhattan Planned Parenthood clinic in 2020. That's according to the Department of Justice. She joins others who've been charged, convicted, and some sentenced under the Biden-Kamala regime with violations of the FACE Act, including 89-year-old Eva Edel, a survivor of a communist concentration camp who fled Soviet-controlled Eastern Europe. She was convicted earlier this year. With Kamala's comments earlier this week about conscience clauses when it comes to baby killing, this anti-Christian trend isn't going anywhere anytime soon if Kamala's elected.
What concessions would be on the table? Religious exemptions, for example? Is that something that you would consider?
I don't think we should be making concessions when we're talking about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body.
So, Steve, I want to start here with you, and I don't want to ask you to make a pitch. I want you to just give us your analysis as someone that, again, has worked for one of the 3-letter agencies that would be utilized for such measures. If there's somebody watching or listening right now, and they think that, and they have most of our belief system, but they think people like me are blowing this stuff out of proportion. It's not as existential as shows like mine and that peddle and fear porn make it sound, and that the risk is not nearly as inherent as the way we make it seem to be. And so therefore, they're perfectly fine just, sitting this one out. Can you just give those people an analysis based on your own experience working within this matrix, your own experience, which you think taking the current level of weaponization we are seeing and then force multiplying it by another 4 full years? What would that look like?
Well, to set the foundation for it, you have to go back to Barack Obama assuming office in 2009. So a Kamala Harris presidency would mean 20 years. That's an entire government career, a full generation of hiring that has gone across every single agency, not just my ex-girlfriend over at the FBI. And I think one of the biggest flaws of the Donald Trump first presidency was in personnel. So he didn't really do anything to address that. The same practices went on during those 4 years. So now you have 20 years of ideologues that are there. And that's how you're getting things like McDonald's the other day, who had one franchise allow him to do one photo opportunity. And then we had an E. coli breakout, CDC, all over that one. And then the United States senators accusing them of price gouging and driving the stock share price down. That is what you're going to see enhanced and more, because the shackles will be fully off. They will have been weighed and measured and found wanting, the American people, that is. And to reference the FACE Act, I mean, in the Biden administration, it's been applied more than any other presidential administration in history. It came about in the mid-90s, thanks to bipartisanship. Thank you very much, Republicans. 92% application towards pro-lifers, not people who were subject to fire bombings at their crisis pregnancy centers. And then the FBI, to my ex-girlfriend, they have the tools. People do not know exactly the powers that are at their fingertips. They have the ability to have an assessment from the Patriot Act, which means that they can open up an investigation on any American for an articulable purpose. Don't need probable cause of a crime. They have Section 702, which people think is foreign, but it's not, because they combine it with Appendix G of their guidebook, and that allows them to open up a counterintelligence case on any American.
In other words, you're describing investigations in search of crimes. That's really what you're, not criminal investigations, but investigations in search of crimes. That's what you're describing.
Oh, find me a man and I'll show you the crime. And they've broadened the definition through the national security space to the anti-government, anti-authority, violent extremist. And that's someone, by the FBI's own definition, who has a perception of government overreach or negligence. And they expand that more to the Christians. Look, you have the Christian nationalism accusation. They're imbibing and laundering information from organizations like the Public Religion Research Institute that says that Christian nationalism is connected to white supremacy. Even though people could be all different colors across the rainbow, they're all refracted through white supremacy. That makes them racially motivated violent extremists, i.e. domestic terrorists. And then I have a piece today. The FBI is willing to entrap vulnerable Americans. The Blaze published my piece about how they encouraged and radicalized a young man to join the military and put actual patriots who joined the army at risk in order to push a case forward on ISIS for 5 years when ISIS wasn't even a threat. And there's no counterbalance. The GOP has had the power of the purse strings. They've had these committees. They haven't done anything with it. There's been no accountability. And then there's ultimately the private organizations that theoretically are supposed to be paradigm shifting and putting ideas out there and having influence over the GOP and the Congress. And it's been nothing other than getting them to attend donor conferences.
So at this point, you just have to hope. I mean, the Republican Party has been in the state you just described long before Donald Trump, which is why people turn to a figure like Donald Trump in the first place. I mean, I've done that show. I'm at 18 years of this. I've done that show many a time. At this point, you just have to hope, since he's already faced 2 assassins and 94 years in prison, then at this point, you just have to hope that Donald Trump has finally learned once and for all there are some things beyond the art of the deal. Right? They're just some. You just have to hope that if he gets a second chance here, he's just going to have to learn there is no dealing with these kinds of elements and entities. You have to oppose them. I mean,
I would hope that his business acumen allows him to recognize that the personnel is the problem, and it's not just a change at the top.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just listen to the Fox News cable nighttime lineup telling you that if you swap out the FBI director, everything is going to get fixed.
Right.
He's hired and fired enough people over his career to know that it's going to take a personnel overhaul that probably necessitates radically changing things like getting rid of an entire organization like the FBI and rebuilding it from the ground up. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
And don't take Chris Christie's advice for who you hire for that gig. Don't do that either. Indeed. Todd.
Bridgegate, not a good fix.
No, exactly. Todd.
It's going to get really bad. And why wouldn't it? Permission will be granted. This is why it's a trial of the American people. If they win, if Kamala wins, it'll be one of 2 reasons. The American people legitimately chose her in the face of all the evidence of what they like to do to us and enjoy doing. And they'll say, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to keep enjoying my video games and whatever else I'm doing over here, and you guys go do what you want to do. Or it'll have been stolen from us, and obviously so, and those same American people will do the same thing. This is the problem. It's a people problem. We will give them permission either way if Kamala wins to just go down the road of pain. I can't imagine it going another way. This has been. What about human nature? Just says, yeah, we're done having fun here.
Yeah. After we win this way, then we'll dial it back.
Yeah,
that's not how human nature works at all. After you win this way is when you go full jackboot to the throat.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the analogy that Tucker gave the other night. I can't remember where they were. I think maybe it was the rally in Georgia. And it's an analogy that I've given. I think many of us, or not many of us, but a few of us have given on the show. Whatever you incentivize, you get more of. Whatever you de-incentivize, you get less of. That goes down to the granular level. If you don't punish your children for disobedience, what are you incentivizing? more disobedience. If you don't punish the party in power for weaponizing the government, what are you going to get more of? The weaponization of government. When it comes to family, that may mean that peace in the home is disturbed for a while, okay? That's not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things. When it comes to not spanking government and holding government accountable and spanking government, what does that mean? That means you're going to prison. Lots of people are going to prison. Little bit higher stakes. I don't see how you can have an IQ above room temperature and not put these pieces together. I don't see how this is possible. You may, again, I give maximum grace. If you were not able to say goodbye to a loved one during 2020, you lost your business during 2020, otherwise lost livelihoods, loved ones, couldn't make it to an AA meeting, and you place that responsibility at the foot of Donald Trump, I do not blame you, and I'm never going to try to get you to see anything other than that. If you are just completely turning a blind eye to what this woman means, and it's not just this woman, you're granting assent to the system, really. You're just pledging fealty. If you're just turning a blind eye to that, no, there's going to be some big lesson that's learned if we just completely give communists total control of the federal government after they've imported somewhere between 6 to 12 to 20 million illegals, and everybody's going to learn a lesson, and we're going to have Valhalla in 2028. You're dumb as a box of rocks. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. On that note, it's a question. Which is the most dangerous three-letter agency? Todd.
Steve's here. He can prove me wrong.
But we all just want to defer to Steve on
this? Since it is the domestic police and everything we're talking about, I'm going to say it's the FBI.
Aaron?
The one that nobody's talking about.
Oh, you mean just as a general rule?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Steve?
Aaron's right, and that is the Department of Homeland Security. As much as I want to dunk on my ex-girlfriend, they still do have constraints there between the Attorney General guidelines for domestic investigations and the Domestic Investigations Operations Guide. The Department of Homeland Security does not have those constraints. They have 10 times the budget. And then if they don't even do their job and they just let the borders open, we all suffer as a result of it. It doesn't even take weaponization.
How about that's a question I just cannot even envision. I want to go back and tell my 2010 self, because we've been doing this Deace Group. We did this on the sports show. I ripped off the McLaughlin Group on the sports show when I used to do that locally for years. So I've been doing this Friday roundtable, some version of this, for over 20 years. And I just want to go back and tell my 2010 self that I'm going to unironically ask the question of which three-letter agency is the most dangerous on this show. I just would not have believed myself. I would not have believed myself, but here we are. Let's get to our kicker topic really quick. If you could ask Kamala Harris one question in public that she would be compelled to answer, what would it be? Aaron.
Why do you think Joe Biden selected you as his running mate?
That would be a fascinating answer. Well, are
we talking about Wonder Woman lasso of truth here?
Yeah, Wonder Woman lasso of truth levels of compulsion. She has to answer it and be honest. Yeah. Heart of hearts level of honesty.
Yes.
That's a good one. Todd.
Who was really running the country during the Biden presidency?
That's maybe an even better one. Yeah. Who's really calling the shots here? Steve, what about you?
As someone who gave up on her opportunity to have a family, I got to know your body count. How many times have you gone into a Planned Parenthood? And it is, after all, just a medical procedure. It's just a clump of cells. You want Donald Trump's medical records? I want to know how many times you've gone in.
Wow. Dude, man. But you know what? Here's the thing.
I want Steve Friend to run a three-letter agency. I do, badly.
Here's the thing, though. And we were among the first shows going back to the 2020 primary, watching Joe Biden even in Iowa, thinking that's not the same guy, right? Okay. And I felt bad at first about making an issue of his senility even 5 years ago. But as it went on and became more and more obvious, my position became, well, you know what, though? Here we are. If you guys are just going to run this as a candidate and then gaslight us all and lie to us that he's not senile, then that empathy is now out the window now. Now you're using it to essentially, gain a foothold against me in a position of power, right? Okay. Similarly, I don't know where, everybody in this audience, hundreds of thousands of people are probably going to watch or listen to this at some point today. And I don't know where all of you are at. But I'm guessing no matter where you are, every freaking commercial you're seeing their side run has something to do with killing babies right now, no matter where you live. No matter where you live. So if you're going to make this the entire linchpin about why this issue is why you get to take all of my rights away, why you get to gain power and threaten every last morsel of my way of life as this issue, then yeah, at that point, what Steve just said there a minute ago is absolutely fair game at that point. You bet your ass it is. Yeah. If you're gonna, if you want to make your so-called personal autonomous positions and decisions, the reason why you get to decide if we have an open border, you get to decide if we don't know what a woman even is. Mm-hmm. You get to decide if they castrate my kid at his with the guidance counselor without ever telling me about it. Okay, if that's your rationale in order and your cudgel to gain power over me on every other conceivable front, then you bet your ass I'm entitled to that information then. So it's a decent question at that point.
Absolutely.
Let's get to predictions quickly. Aaron, go ahead.
What we thought was a reliably red state will go blue, and what we thought was a reliably blue state will go red in this election.
And no predictions on which ones those would be. I love that.
I have an idea, but no, I'm not going that specific.
Okay. Todd?
In at least one state, there will be confirmed, unambiguous, everybody admits it, even the press, election interference. The only question may or may not be how far it goes, what it tipped, and the election will be certified nonetheless, and nobody will do anything about it.
Like, say, if there was another storm in a state like North Carolina, for example.
Just spitball in here.
Okay. Steve?
I'm going to try to solve the Kobayashi Maru and issue a sports bro prediction that Todd Erzin approves of, and that is that tomorrow my son's 10 and under Pop Warner football team will take the field with vinegar-infused Gatorade. Enter Sandman will be blasting. They will win their semifinal match on the backs of a great defensive performance by the middle linebacker, my son Mason. 13-0. Go Hawks. We bleed orange.
Amen, amen. I say it to you.
Yeah, you did it. You came up with a sports bro pick that Todd is 100% in favor of. And it wasn't just the vinegar, but the whole dad thing. But the vinegar, it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt. It definitely helped. Yes. My prediction is I think 52 is the lowest number of Republicans in the Senate after this election. I think the floor is now 52. That's my prediction. Now, that may be all they end up with.
What's the max possible?
They could conceivably get to 56, 57.
Okay,
yeah. But I think 52 is now actually the floor. Good to see you, Steve. We'll definitely have you back, brother. You did great. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Good luck with that game tomorrow. All right?
Amen.
All right.
Go Hawks.
All right, we'll come back. It'll be Feedback Friday. Stay tuned. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, podcast with Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erzin. I'm Steve Deace. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. You can email us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X or Twitter, as it used to be known, Instagram, and TikTok. And then don't forget to please subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel, as we're trying to start all over there after all the censorship that crushed us before. At Deace Show on YouTube. At Deace Show on YouTube is where you want to subscribe. Thanks to all of you who have. And then also make sure you hit subscribe, or if you're on iTunes, follow. And that makes sure every time we do a new episode, it shows up in your feed there every single time as well. And then finally, if you are a podcast aficionado, thank you. Please leave us a 5-star review, and we appreciate all of you that have done that for us. I'll tell you something my mom really appreciated a couple of years ago. When Paint Your Life came on board, I decided to make it to my own little Christmas guinea pig. Why would I recommend something to you guys I wouldn't, give as a gift to somebody in my own family? And so I went and I gave them the oldest picture that I had, because my mom's got older pictures, but it would of course raise suspicion. Hey Mom, can you just, give me a picture, an old picture you have of me and you when I was a baby? Well, why? I just I don't know, maybe. I wanted to be a surprise. So I gave them the oldest one that I have. And if you're watching right now, you can see what they did with this picture. The actual picture is very worn. It's kind of got that orange hue. And I mean, that thing looks like it's in 4K. I mean, they took that picture and did an absolutely phenomenal job. It blew my mom away when she got this for Christmas a few years ago. So if you're like, what is a gift we could give that would be meaningful and they'd never see coming? You're going to be hard-pressed to top this. All right. So you can get started with your holiday shopping early this season. Give the most meaningful gift you've ever given from paintyourlife.com. There's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded guaranteed. You can order now and get the Paint Your Life early bird holiday offer, 20% off of your painting. That's right. They can do this with any of your pictures. 20% off, a limited time. Get 20% off and free shipping. And we're talking about full-size portraits, folks. That's a nice discount as well. All right. So to get this special offer, text the word DACE, my last name, DEACE, text DACE to 87204. That's DACE to 87204. Again, text DACE to 87204 from Paint Your Life. Celebrate the moments that matter the most. Some breaking news we want to alert you to, and we were just talking about it during the break. And Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, the DA there is announcing indictments with a fraudulent voter registration scheme. And Lancaster County, by the way, pretty red area of Pennsylvania. Trump won that by 16 in 2020, which is a reminder. When we talk about voter fraud, we just talk about, or we primarily talk about, the infamous counties of 4 years ago: Maricopa, Philadelphia, Wayne, Fulton, right? Okay. But you have to understand, too, another aspect of this is to go into these areas that Trump is going to win and practice the same thing if you can in order to water it down. So instead of winning Lancaster by 16, Trump wins it by, say, 14. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And when you're dealing with a county with well over 100,000 people, that, you know, and you do that in enough of those kinds of counties, that's another way you can spread your scheme out. Right? If you're like, you know, think of any great, you know, heist movie or mob movie. Hey, the heat's on, right? We're above. They see us coming. Right. We got to lay low or figure out another way of doing it, right? I mean, the amount of eyes that are going to be on Wayne, Fulton, Philadelphia, Maricopa County this time is going to be pretty extraordinary. I don't know that it'll make a difference, but it certainly will be more visible. We were all just kind of gobsmacked and blindsided by this 4 years ago. That will not be the case this time. That doesn't mean anything productive will be done about it, but the amount of eyes that are going to be on the vote counts in these areas is way more than what we had at this juncture 4 years ago, right? So if the heat is on and you're like, okay, you know, we maybe in Philadelphia County, we can't just board up the windows and not let Republicans come in and monitor the vote and violate state law like we did before, you know, but what if we can just, you know, make it more subtle, you know? Take just 2-3 points off of Trump here and 2-3 points off of Trump there and some of these other places, and you know, and then just, hey, you know, people, he's historically unpopular, blah 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 blah. Then it becomes much more difficult to detect at that point. So there is another angle to this that it works the other way too. So, and you and I were joking as we were talking about the story before the break, Todd, and I because you guys know I love my sports analogies. But man, right now, you're at the juncture where you're up by like 10 in Assembly Hall against Bob Knight in Indiana at the under 4 timeout. And in like 99% of any other arena in the country, you won the game, right? But you also know that Indiana is now getting every single call imaginable you could imagine down the stretch. You're going to look at the clock and you're going to be like, how are there still 2.5 minutes in this game and they're shooting free throws again? You see what I mean? So you're up by 10 at the under 4 timeout. You're walking out of there with like a 2 or 3 point win. Okay. Because you were also telling me now one of the judges in Virginia wants to make him put the illegals back on the voter rolls that Youngkin just purged or something along those lines. You said you saw that story too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah. They're going to get every call down the stretch, guys. Every call, right? We're going to be on Blaze TV on election night. Federal judge says leave the polls open in Charlotte, and you know, and all. They're going to get every call. So, going to have to execute all the way down here to the end of the game. All right. All right, you guys ready for some Feedback Friday?
You bet.
All right, let's start here. Speaking of Pennsylvania. I'm starting here because several of you asked me questions about this. And I've heard almost nothing about it. So I wanted to see if you guys had heard and if this is legit or not. Okay. Vern says there are reports that the Amish community in Pennsylvania are registering in droves and plan on voting for Trump. And then he throws in, P.S. Eli be flippin'. I just looked at that. I like the last line there. Okay, so this is one of those things at face value is either a Laura Loomer Nutter special, okay, or so nuts it has to actually be true. Have you guys heard anything about this at all? Because this is in our water table. I've had a lot of people ask me about this.
I've got some show and tell here. Just give me a minute.
All right. Have you heard anything about this or isn't it all?
Sure.
You have too?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen reports of this or is just people asking you about it?
Well, I guess a hybrid of that.
Okay. Because I have a lot of people asking me about it, but I've not seen this story. And it would be very atypical for, those sorts of groups, Mennonites, Anabaptists, in general, Amish would be in that group to take part in these kinds of things because they view themselves as wanting to remain unstained by the world, right?
I saw a video of a guy, and it looked like it was a local news, but these days, remember when, the Ray Rice, the difference is it wasn't just hearsay, you have the tape?
Yeah.
Now I'm the other way. If I have the tape, I might even be more skeptical because
Is it real? Is it
real?
AI?
Yes.
Because some of these AI videos going around now are something else. All right,
This is absolutely anecdotal, but my parents were just in Lancaster last week. My mom snapped this photo in the middle of Lancaster. She said Trump signs are just absolutely everywhere, which you would expect based on some of the data that you just laid out for that counting.
Did she encounter that Eli be flipping?
I didn't ask her specifically about Eli, but who knows?
All right. So there is at least something to this because, I've been asked about this a million times. So this must have germinated from something. All right. Where, the Amish to the rescue.
This
has been talked about cycle after cycle. I want to see it, actually manifest as something real. It's also, they don't show up in the polls because they don't have phones. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's true of the Amish out in Pennsylvania. I know the Amish where I grew up, they don't have phones, but I'm not sure if that's true of the Amish in Pennsylvania.
Do you guys remember the report of the Amish during COVID? When the local report, this did happen. I watched this report with my own eyes. A local reporter, and I can't remember where it was. A local reporter asked a member of the Amish community why they're not wearing masks, practicing lockdowns, and why they're not feeling the effects of the pandemic like everyone else is. And his answer was, well, we don't have TV. Yeah, we don't have TV. That's why.
This is a perfect encapsulation of the whole Trump moment and the debate between Christians about what you do. The Amish, who in theory could have had candidates far closer to a worldview that they share, but ultimately they wouldn't vote for in a better world because they just say, I want to be left alone. We do our own thing over here, okay? And that's fine with us. They finally pull out the yard signs for somebody who the circle is barely touching, i.e. Donald Trump. But it's because I am absolutely certain Kamala won't leave me alone. That's what we're talking about here.
So I'm getting emails. Ed just got an email from a guy named Ed. I live near several Amish communities. They actually started registering in 2020. So he says there is something to this. Someone just sent me a note, the Scott Pressler guy that's kind of become this social media legend, okay, and that he has spent a lot of time working the Amish community and getting them registered. So I don't know.
My mom, I didn't know she was actually watching live. She just texted and said, my sister-in-law said there are large groups of Amish that are voting.
Okay. Well,
there are large groups of Amish in Lancaster County.
I can promise you that the Amish probably would not. I can't say I can promise and then probably. It is likely the Amish would not show up in a poll. I think we can at least say that.
Probably.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to lead with that because, to me, it sounded so meme-worthy that it either had to be Loomer-esque Nutter clickbait or true. There was no in between, right? It is.
I know.
It has to be either 100% ironclad truth or just absolute nutter,
Raise a barn on
clickbait.
Monday, vote for Trump on Tuesday.
That's why I was kind of, when you asked me, have you seen this stuff? And I was like, I didn't know which way you were going to go with this.
Okay. I was just curious because, we'll take it, man. Hey, take what we can get. Amish want to save us.
You are now part of the tribe.
Yes. I'm not going to, I'm not going to complain. All right. Wayne Petty says, what would be the implications of an election that came up 269 to 269?
Nice.
Now, first of all, thank you. First of all, that can happen now. Well, I mean, it always could. But in this particular election, it can happen because the state of Nebraska chose not to align all of its electoral college votes. So they made it possible for Kamala to get to 269 without having to win any of the Sunbelt states. She could lose Nevada, which technically isn't a Sunbelt, but gets connected to it because it's a warm weather state on the West Coast. But Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, she could lose them all. And if she wins the blue wall, Rust Belt firewall, she would get to 269 and force it to the House. Okay? So Wayne says, are there enough never-Trumpers in the House of Representatives? Because for those of you that don't know, that's where the vote would go next. Are there enough never-Trumpers in the House of Representatives to give the presidency to Kamala? What would that do to the Republican Party?
How can I cut myself harder?
Yes.
Signed the Joker.
Yes.
Let's
but
play.
I loved this level of blackpilling. I just thought, we've been off brand recently because even we're feeling the momentum. So I just felt like we needed a black pill. We needed a black pill wellness check for our own show. All right. So that's why I moved Wayne Petty to the front of the line. I thought, we need a black pilled wellness check on this show. Everybody's too happy right now. All right.
That's a t-shirt. Have you had your black pill wellness check today?
Yes. Stay black. Yes. All right. We should do that, actually. Day show shirts. Stay black with a fist, but then there's a pill next to it. Stay black. Yes.
Oh, we're terrible.
We are. All right. But let's entertain this for a second. And here's what I think would happen. I think Trump would win. And I think every Republican would vote for Trump. And here's why. Because they have to announce themselves out in the open. And there would be way more scrutiny on this than, well, is it an omnibus? Is it a continuing resolution? And did members of the House Freedom Caucus sign a pledge saying they'd never again vote for a CR? You see what I'm saying? Okay. The song and dances that we can do when it comes to the legislative process that allows these folks levels of nuance for people of principle and levels of cowardice for people of fecklessness. This would be the most watched trial in American history. I mean, this is all of the OJ trials in one event. Would be this event. I mean, this would generate lunar landing ratings. And the amount of heat and scrutiny that would be on every single one of these Republicans. You could be Liz Cheney'd in a heartbeat. This is what happened to Liz Cheney. And therefore, I think they would all vote for Trump. Or there's a certain amount of them that are going to retire anyway and don't care. But it would have to be those kinds of people that would not, in my view, because this level of exposure and heat these kinds of Republicans don't want any part of. That's my read. I could be wrong. Aaron and Todd, though, what say you?
Throw another shrimp on the Barbie. I mean,
the chances of this are not nil. I mean, I wouldn't say they're high, but I'd say they're like 10% that this could happen. Yeah.
Look on your face.
Well, I want to hurt you. I want to hurt you.
Let's just do this.
That you think there's 10% chances that we might have to endure this. I want to hurt you right now.
Let's just do this election and get on with the next inning.
I don't know if the audience saw that. Todd just gave me one wicked side eye when I said I think there's a 10% chance this could happen. That's probably his daughters probably have gotten that look a few times over the years. That's the same wicked side eye that I just got. Aaron, what do you think?
I just got distracted. I was trying to find any distraction from this black hole of a conversation. Somebody just promised Todd.
Stay black.
Somebody just promised Todd $1 million on Twitter. I have gone through the 270 to win multiple times. Basically, what we're talking about is the Omaha suburbs if they flip to Trump.
Yep.
That's kind of what we're talking about.
Or they
here.
don't.
Or they don't.
Or they don't. Yeah. And so Nebraska splits its electoral college votes. Trump wins all of the Sun Belts, and Kamala wins all of the Rust Belts. Yeah.
Well, do you remember somebody's reporting a catalyst on the Amish issue? That there was a government agency's rated.
This is Todd's version of the deflection. We need to talk about something else right now.
Let's talk about rating the Amish instead of this. Absolutely. I mean, God.
Todd is going to burn me in the Wicker Man, all right, here in a minute. Okay.
The level I am... You know this. You've known it for a long time. You've known it before 2020 and things got nuts. The level of which I can be triggered about talking about the next election before this election happens,
yes,
it drives me crazy. And every day there's people out there like scheming about, setting things up for 2028. I can't.
Todd, what do you think the odds are in 2028 that will end with a 269 to 269 tie?
Perfect.
Those are the new emails I'm going to get. Instead of people emailing me snotty sports takes they want Todd's reaction to. All right, they're going to be, Todd, your thoughts on if it's 269 to 269 and what happens in the House. Yes. Yeah. So there's that.
Everybody has to go on the record, right?
Yeah. You can't,
really?
You're not going to voice vote.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Really, though?
Really.
They can't change the rules.
I really
everything these days is like the pirate code. They're more like guidelines than actual rules. That would be the dream for the swamp. Screw your on the record votes. We're just gonna go a voice vote. And hey, I heard the ayes have it for Kamala. There you go.
Have we reached Vanta status, even entertaining this? Yes. All right. We can
just parked there.
All right. We can move on. All right. Griffin in Magnolia, Texas writes, I think I've heard you say that political power has never transferred peacefully. How has power transferred in this country, not just each 4 years, but specifically how has the power changed from the time of the founders to the current situation? We the people just gave it up, right? Was that peaceful? My point is not to disagree with you, but to analyze how political power has transferred in hopes we the people might rightfully hold it in the future. So Griffin, let me clarify what I've said in the past. What I've said is there has never been a mass transfer of prosperity, freedom, liberty, and property in a culture from one culture to another and from one subset of a culture to another. So I wasn't talking about political power. I was talking about outright agency. Right? I mean, if you can't own property, then you're not a free citizen, no matter what other rights you supposedly have. Okay? And so what I mean is there has never been a free exchange of property, liberty, and prosperity from one culture to another that was peaceful, meaning people have just never voluntarily given those things away to an invading force. No, we don't. In fact, thank you for attacking us. We were just about to give up. That's never happened. Okay? Nor within a culture has one subset said, by all means, like my wife, she's yours, take it, as Rodney Dangerfield once famously said. All right? It doesn't work that way. That's what I was talking about. I was talking more about the elements of agency and autonomy of being a free person, not not specifically political power. So I just wanted to clarify that. Marcia writes, I consider myself a Christian, but I can't quote scripture, and it's been many years since I've attempted to read the Bible. I'm up regularly in the middle of the night. I read, listen to podcasts. Recently decided to listen to the Bible on Hoopla. Is that some kind of an app or something, Aaron, that I'm not aware of?
Never heard of it.
Okay.
Me neither.
However, I've not been especially satisfied with what I found. Can you make any recommendations? I pray every night for guidance, and I guess what I would call a recalibration of my life, my views, my anger, ability to walk on the narrow road, and feel like I am falling woefully short. It's me, not God, who is lacking in the conviction department here. And I feel like reading and hearing God's word is what I need. I just don't know what's a good source and where I'm looking. Suggestions are welcome. Bless you guys. You don't always bring me good news, but you always give me solace and resolve to not check out, to be silent and become a normie, or not become a normie who just Netflix and chills. So that's from Marcia. Okay. I would get in the habit, Marcia, of you can, there's lots of apps out there like YouVersion and others.
Yeah, just the Bible app has a lot of different translations of the Bible.
Where they, as an audio component,
as an
right?
audio component, yeah.
And I would start actually with, when you lay down at night, start Genesis 1 till you get to the end. And then just remember, when you eventually fall asleep, where did it leave off? The last thing that you hear every night before you go to bed is the Word of God. And just start there. And I think a lot of times people want, let me do this. Let me put it in another context. How we fixed our marriage may work for some of you. Won't work for most of you. And may or may not work for you specifically. Why? Because we're people and not formulas. We're not algorithms. We're people. And therefore, relationships are mechanisms that are complicated by nature in general, and then further made complicated by the dynamics of the personalities of the two people, the belief systems, personalities, etc., of the two people on either end of them. Human nature is not a voter guide. It's a Venn diagram. Okay? And it's why, great men can do stupid and immoral things. It's why problematic men can do great and heroic things. It's why, a mom who is incredibly nurturing and is on her last leg with a kid and writes him off. It's why a father who for many years was cold and distant now suddenly is able to express a thought of warmth and affirmation. We're variables. We're not constants. And so to me, likewise, that's the same thing with your relationship with your Creator. He made you individually. He gave you individual talents and abilities and instincts. He counted the hairs on your head. He fearfully and wonderfully made you. And so therefore, there's fundamentals that, for example, it's kind of hard to fundamentally have a good marriage if one person's being, unfaithful to the other on a consistent basis, right? Kind of hard fundamentally to have a good marriage if one person's being abusive consistently to the other, right? So there are fundamentals, but then the circumstances beyond those fundamentals are unique to those individuals and their relationship. And the same thing applies in your relationship with your Heavenly Father. So what necessarily works in one relationship for someone to draw closer to God may or may not be what works for someone else. What I would seek to do, given what you articulated, and if you find yourself in the same position that Marcia is put yourself in a circumstance where mentally you can begin to absorb God's word as a practice. And then the more of it you absorb, the practice may change. Okay? The practice may be, I want to read it now directly. I want to study something directly. Here's a specific study that I want to do, or would you recommend? But I think the first thing is, I want to meet her. I want to meet him. Well, then you have to actually meet her or him. Now, how the relationship proceeds after you've met varies based on the makeup of the individuals, right? So how you proceed in your relationship with your Creator after you have established a level of connection and intimacy will vary. But I would work first on establishing that. I'd make the Word of God the last thing I hear every night before I go to bed, starting with Genesis 1:1, and I go all the way to the end. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, here's the thing with a lot of this. We get to a part of our lives where we want to do this, and we ask questions about the best way to do, and oftentimes we'll pick one that... I mean, there's fit into our schedule and all kinds of things. There's practical those, but then oftentimes, though, the devil's at work there too and picks the one, oh, I kind of like that one. Mm-hmm. Not to say that in its specificity, it's a bad idea to do, but, remember, one of the most chilling passages in all of Scripture is, Lord, I did this, and this in your name. And he said, oh, but I hardly knew you. Maybe you should do this thing right here. Or maybe you should do the thing that doesn't tickle your ears right then. It's like, I don't know. And it's not a practical consideration, really. It's just like, that doesn't seem like it's me. Oh, well, that's the whole point, isn't it? We're trying to bust you up and remake you in the Lord's image. You got this. There's been a fascinating anecdotal study of marathon runners who, for their first marathon, and they wanted to improve their lives. They knew they needed to get healthy, and it was kind of a spiritual quest. And they felt like if they conquer this, they will be a different person at the end. And they actually were more uncertain and depressed after the marathon than when they started, because they placed too much into it. They kind of made an idol of it, and it still was not really about the main thing. Sometimes it's not about a specific marathon. Sometimes it's just run. And that's the thing about this, being really, really honest with yourself about, am I, in doing something even to improve myself in the name of God, am I still using all the things that always get me in trouble? The devil is an SOB, and when you get to this crucial moment when you're making these decisions, he starts going all in, and he does not want to make you let you take that first step effectively.
Yeah, just a kind of a version of what Todd said. I don't quite understand, based on the context of your email, what you are not enjoying or liking about this process. To me, it came off as maybe the translation of the Bible wasn't quite, you weren't quite getting it. Lean into that which makes you uncomfortable. Furthermore, just a very, very basic on systematic theology is The Stranger on the Road to Emmaus by John R. Cross. The Stranger by John R. Cross. That's a good resource, I think, if you are early on in your faith walk.
All right, we'll come back. More Feedback Friday here next. If you're frustrated and tired of giving your money to people who hate you, unfortunately, we just can't avoid that in many walks of life in America right now. But one where we can is when it comes to one of the most important devices we have to use these days, our mobile phones. You can make the switch to our friends at Patriot Mobile, get the same great coverage you get from the communists, but you don't have to give your money directly to them anymore. Instead, give it to a company that has a 100% U.S.-based customer service team, which means you'll actually be able to understand them. And then secondly, they will reinvest those profits back into your value system. I've seen them do it with my own eyes. All right. So if you want to make the switch today, you get a free month of service when you use my offer code Steve. When you go to patriotmobile.com/Steve, use the offer code Steve at patriotmobile.com/Steve. You'll get a free month of service today. patriotmobile.com/Steve, offer code Steve for that free month of service. By the way, at this point, the Amish may not be the heroes we need, but they are the heroes we deserve. My inbox right now. I mean, Weird Al Yankovic would be proud. My inbox right now, it's just all about the Amish right now. So, I mean, this audience has apparently heard all the same urban legends we did. The Amish have come to save America. Indeed.
They're like the elves showing up to Helm's Deep.
Yes.
God knows your email box needed a palate cleanser, because that's a dark, dark place.
Yes, it can be. So we've got the Ride of the Rohirrim coming out, the animated movie here in a little bit. Ride of the Amish. The wagons are here. All right, and the cavalry has arrived. Yes. Well, I guess in case of the Amish, the cavalry arriving too would account to, I guess. Yeah.
The people are the problem. We've talked. It's going to be that if Trump wins, in terms of everything he does, in terms of staffing, just going to be a huge issue right out of the gate. I mean. Is it too on the nose? I mean,
just start hiring a bunch of Amish people.
Secretary of Agriculture,
you guys just come in here and start cleaning this thing up.
I just want Joe Amish. Just go into Lancaster County, grab any Amish guy. You, Secretary of Ag, done. That's a better place already, America.
I would love to give the Amish the credit they apparently, according to you guys in my inbox, deserve for coming to save America. Unfortunately, none of them are listening right now.
Why?
Because we are on a satanic device and platform. That's why. Yes. All right, let's continue on. I've been a listener of your show since 2018. You guys have been very influential in opening up my eyes to the amount of corruption and backstabbing by the GOP over the years. And if I wasn't an avid listener to your show, I likely would have succumbed to the COVID hysteria. And I'd like to thank you guys for that first and foremost. I'm currently 22, working a small end trade, and have dreams of owning a house and starting a family one day. I began to take the faith seriously in 22 and have finally decided to be baptized. With that being said, I've got serious concerns for the future of the country. Well, let's pause right there and say that's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I want to make sure, and you didn't bury the lead, brother, so I want to make sure that we don't, because that's the most important thing of your entire note is that. All right? This country's existence is very important, but countries in the end come and they go, Hobbs. They come and they go. All right? So welcome to the only eternal kingdom in all of the cosmos. Let me say that first and foremost. Okay? Now let's continue on. I have a niece coming to the world soon, and while I should be happy, I'm rather fearful for a multitude of reasons. One simply being that the children's entertainment of today is significantly worse in every facet than it was 15 to 20 years ago, and that's barely scratching the surface of the spirit of the age that looms and is ready to infect her once she enters school age, especially when her parents simply are way too comfortable, as Todd would say. All of this combined with the current economy, including the housing market and growing possibility that Kamala Harris could take over as president and be able to replace Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court and pass amnesty that make it impossible for a Republican to win the presidency again. That's Elon's big issue, by the way. He keeps repeating that over and over again, that the reason that he is going all in on this is because of the immigration issue. He sees Democrats trying to create America as a one-party state, and that's why he's risking essentially being assassinated by every foreign, World Economic Forum government in the world is over that issue. All right. I'm actively talking to everyone I know and trying to convince them all to vote for Trump this cycle. And while they're often in agreement, they're also way too comfortable. Outside of the gospel, is there any hope for a future in which Kamala is our president? And if this should happen, why shouldn't I devote my life fully to evangelizing as many people as possible, even if that means leaving my job in the process? Thanks so much. And any scriptures or passages and prayers would be greatly appreciated. That is from Christian from Arizona. Okay. So I actually want to start with the end first of your note. Brother, we've never met. It is entirely possible you're being called to be an evangelist. Okay. Now, let me say this, though, as a check. Okay. I also was one of them. There's a lot of guys who don't get saved or converted until their 20s and 30s and then feel like this compulsion to, they're all fired up and then they feel like this compulsion to formally join the ministry. And I'll just give you my own example. Okay. I was a baby Christian. I was working a sports talk radio station owned by the local AAA team. They end up selling the station, and they sold it to a Christian music company. And the Christian music company let it be known they were letting go all the employees except they were interested in keeping me and trying to see if there was a possibility of me doing a local Christian show that they could then build the rest of the station around. And I just felt like I had to say yes to this offer because I would be like disappointing God if I didn't take this offer. Okay. And so even though I have to tell you, I didn't feel that fire in the belly, But I also don't know what to measure any of this by because I'm a relatively new Christian, right? So I don't know what's last night's pizza yet, and what's a calling. I don't know any of that yet, So I call one of the pastors of our church at the time, and he's like, "Oh, don't you dare take that job with the Christian radio company." And I got really defensive. I'm like, "What? You don't think I'm holy enough?" He goes, "No, you're not." And the reality is, the first time you say something like "sucks" on the air, every blue hair in that audience, all 7 of them, are all calling the program director, and you're fired. You don't want any part of that. Stay on the path that you're on. Well, I didn't really have a path at this point in time because if I don't take this job, I'm losing my job. Okay. So I took his advice to heart. I didn't immediately commit. The next day I get a call from a guy named Van Harden who would go on to become instrumental in my life, not just in my career. And he offered me the opportunity to take over afternoon drive at one of the most successful radio stations in the country and in the history of the format of radio. And from there, I got to do a ton of gospel preaching and teaching on a way bigger platform, and it ended up launching me onto the platforms that I have here today. So it's not abnormal for a guy after getting saved or converted to have the fire in the belly about his faith and think that means I've got to leave behind the areas where God has clearly placed me to join the ministry. Because here's the reality. If you're going to join the ministry formally, you're going to leave, no matter who you are, you're leaving behind areas in the commercial world where you would probably be gifted and skilled, right? That's going to happen invariably, okay? But the question is that what God is calling me to, or is that fire in the belly that I can now use where I am gifted and skilled? Because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. We believe in the priesthood of every believer. You don't have to join the ministry formally to preach the word of God. I mean, look at this show. There's very few programs in America that of this magnitude that are as driven by a biblical worldview as this show is. Nobody here on this show belongs formally to the ministry in any capacity at all. So that would be my only encouragement for you. But not to talk you out of it, but just to, take a wide angle view lens. And then after you do that, if you still feel like, I think that's where I'm being called, then by golly, brother, answer that call.
You're making such an important point, because what you're saying really is at the heart of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about anons. We have become as men.
Not anons.
No.
Anons.
Anons.
I just wanted, since we're talking about joining the formal ministry, I just thought we should clarify that. Go ahead.
I mean, the excuse, you don't have to be anonymous. This is your job. You could say things, or I can only say things if I'm a pastor.
Right.
We need to recreate a society where the definition of being a man is I'm a free citizen. This is what I believe. I'm not hiding from anybody. You're allowed to have the same opportunity, and then we'll all vote on it. The fact that we think the rational default mechanism is to hide all of the time.
Yes.
Is cancer. So your ministry may very well, you keep doing what you're doing and whatever. I'm a mechanic, and yes, I'm going to tell you about Jesus. I'm this, and I'm going to tell you I'm a Republican. I'm this, and I'm going to tell... That is a society that is sustainable.
Correct.
One where we keep thinking, I must hide. And that's your default as a man? That's your that's cosplay. That's not America.
Correct. That video that went viral yesterday of the old lady Karen who knocked on those people's doors because they had the Trump sign in their yard. Okay. Now, that is a demonic distortion of the conviction that Todd is describing. Okay. And that is now where we're belligerent douchebags. All right. That's a demonic distortion of that. And you can tell by her behavior. She is unrestrained. She's just unstable. She's like seething.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't the nice little Mormon boys with the white shirts knocking at your door. This isn't the on a Saturday or the local Baptist church. Hey, we're starting a new church. Thought you might want to come. I mean, it's not that. This is the level of seething. This woman shows up at the door. She's triggered instantly by something like that. Okay. So that's a demonic distortion of what Todd's talking about. But it demonstrates, however, where the conviction is. She feels like she can just freely just walk onto your property, knock on your door, okay, and condemn you to hell on that.
And you know who gives her that impression? We do all the time.
Because we're anonymous and we are quiet and we just, I haven't said this in a while, but let me reset it again. I promise you, I just want to be left alone loses in every history book that's ever been written, every single time. So do not become the cross-wielding version of that, persnickety, crotchety Karen in that video that went viral yesterday. But somewhere in the middle is some level of conviction there where I'm not ashamed of what I believe in. I'm not ashamed of who I am. They can't fire all of us. They can't get rid of all of us. That spirit is why we all ended up in this kind of country with these kinds of rights in the first place. None of it happened through osmosis. None of it just was bestowed. None of it was because of a default setting. Nobody just, hey, let's unplug these 13 colonies, plug them back in and see what happens. People died. And the men who signed those pledges of their lives, fortunes, and sacred honors, they were the elites of their era. Those were their plantations that the redcoats were going to burn. Those were their cushy jobs they were going to lose. And that's what Todd has been talking about. Now it's not that there's never a place for this. But the idea of anonymous as a default setting, and then claiming while I am anonymous that I am the actual principled one. Have you seen that video where the old lady, crotchety, dried up Karen knocks on the doors of her neighbors and condemns them to hell in broad daylight? Now that's some real conviction there.
Did you hear Steve Friend the last hour? The FBI can basically do a background check on anybody they want at any time. You're not anonymous anyway.
Correct.
Our founding fathers, if you read any book about the elections that took place at that time, they fought that war. And things were, between British, French, and everything, War of 1812, following the Revolution, their votes were public. They walked up to the table and they didn't just write on a piece of paper. They claimed out loud, I am voting for this. And they did so proudly. I'm not hiding from that. You're damn right I'm doing this because I'm an American.
What's the legend of why John Hancock signed his signature so big? So that it was so big that even Mad King George would be able to read it.
We have to get that back, and we're not going to get it back if we rely on somebody else to do it for us.
Now, as to your other point about if Kamala were to win, Christian, if your worldview begins with the stated fact that God supernaturally intervened in history to raise a dead man back to life, then there's always hope. You're never without hope. Hope is inherent to your worldview. Maundy Thursday, Good Friday are just setting the stage for Resurrection Sunday. That is your worldview. You're never permitted as a believer to, we joke, the black pill stuff we throw around here, it's a joke. All right. If we inherently were nihilistically black pilled, we'd stop coming in and doing this. Let alone having fun a lot of the times while we're doing it. And that doesn't mean, but here's what you'll feel as a believer, this constant tension. Because on one hand, your pilot light is on. So your level of discernment is better than it ever was before. And now you recognize, therefore, what the stakes are with these kinds of decisions all of the time. And there's going to be a tension between your discernment, but then also your the hope-filled faith that you have that ultimately all things work together for the glory of God and for those whom he loves are called according to his purposes. There's going to be that tension there. And that's a healthy tension. And as you get older, you'll figure out, as you proceed in your faith, we all figure out, when we're falling into naivete on one end or despondency too much on the other. But nihilism and cynicism as a default setting is not an option for a believer. Because your faith is predicated on a man named Yeshua was dead and now is very much alive and ruling and reigning over heaven and earth. Excellent note, brother. Thank you. And God bless you. And again, welcome to the fam. All right, before we close it out here, a word about our friends at Hillsdale College. They are passing out what I would call the ultimate voter guide this election. They want to put pocket constitutions in the hands of as many people as they possibly can, maybe up to 1 million Americans. If you want one of those, or you want to help someone that you know get one of them as well, they're giving away for free. They're even shipping them to you for free. Just go to daceforhillsdale.com, F-O-R, daceforhillsdale.com. You can fill out a simple form there, and they'll mail it to you right away for free, give it to you for free. Again, it's the ultimate voter guide. It's the U.S. Constitution from our friends at Hillsdale College. daceforhillsdale.com. Once again, that's daceforhillsdale.com. Any final thoughts?
Well, the Amish, man. There's that story. They get it. What's your excuse?
I'm more inclined to believe that the Eli's be flipping than I am the. Do you remember the stories from 2020 about the Native American tribes flipping for Trump?
I thought I just read some of that for this election too. That one
Is
of
it
the
just
tribes.
recycled?
Yeah, because Trump actually endorsed them getting a casino or something, wasn't it?
It was federally recognized land.
Or federal recognized lands. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. All right, everybody have a great weekend. We're going to stick around, do overtime for subscribers. For the rest of you, we'll see you on Monday. Until then, Romans 8:28.